I didn't start 2017 with resolutions. I started it in the back of an ambulance. Early January, 2:00 in the morning, chest tight, head spinning, no idea what was happening, just fear. Pure, overwhelming fear. Panic attack, they said. Anxiety, overload, exhaustion. That night, I started antidepressants. Not because I'd finally asked for help, but because I couldn't take the fear anymore. And I'll never forget what the doctor said. You've got to let us help you. Looking back now, it wasn't just one night that landed me there. It was years of holding it all together on the outside while coming apart bit by bit on the inside. All those races, the training, the spreadsheets, the posts, the podcasts, the coaching, the teaching, the work, even the pride. They weren't lies, but they were also cover, a way to stay ahead of the voice in my head. Because if I kept moving, if I was helping someone else, if I looked like I was thriving, then maybe I wasn't struggling. But I was. I just didn't know how to say it out loud until my body said it for me. I thought the year would revolve around £2,017 in 2017, raising money through a years-long triathlon. But almost overnight, that stopped mattering. While getting out of bed wasn't optional, I had young kids. Getting out of the house, having a shower, facing the world, that was a challenge. So I found other ways to cope. I started making my Manx flight sim videos and uploading them to YouTube. Not to build a channel, not to become a YouTuber, just something to focus on. Something I could control when my brain felt too loud, when my energy was too low for anything else. I kept going until April, until that voice was back in my head and took over, telling me that professional pilots were doing a better job. Socially, I didn't post for nearly 5 months. And for me, that said a lot. Eventually I did, not to inspire anyone, not to tell a story, just to let people know I was okay. Don't suffer in silence. I'm not fully better, but I'm heading in the right direction. And today, that's all that really matters. It wasn't a mantra. It was just where I was at. August was supposed to be a win. I'd sat out on a road trip across the UK. 2 courses, a few hundred miles apart, one big step forward in my coaching journey. First stop, the Run Leader course. A 1-day win. Felt good. Simple, clean, like progress. Then came the second course, a higher level swimming teacher qualification, a 4-week, more intense, higher stakes. I didn't know the kids. I was just there to deliver a session as part of the assessment. I went in prepared. I thought I'd delivered a solid lesson. Managed the group, watched them closely, even spoke to a few of them about how to spot the wall during backstroke because safety mattered, especially when they're on their backs. But during the debrief, I was blindsided. They'd said I'd let a child swim straight into the wall. I still don't think that happened, not like they claimed. If it had, I'd have seen it. I'd have stopped it. But it wasn't just that. 40, maybe 50 minutes of being told I wasn't good enough. I can't remember half of what was said, just that feeling of being ripped apart. When it was over, I walked into the classroom, grabbed my bag and left. I never took the final exam. I couldn't. They destroyed me. Back at the hotel, I collapsed into myself. 6, maybe 7, 8 hours, crying, spinning, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Only my boss knew I was on the course. No one else knew I'd failed. But I knew, and from that point on, something changed. I kept teaching for a while after I got home, but my heart had gone out of it. Swimming had once felt like mine. Unorthodox? Yes. But I could reach those kids, help them overcome fear, explain it in their way, teach them how to swim on their terms. But after that course, after trying to take that next step, it never felt the same. In September, we brought Baxter home. I posted a cute image of the boy as a pup with massive feet. This is Captain Baxter. He's joined our family today, hoping to train this fella to help with anxiety and depression. September the 3rd, 2017. He didn't rescue me, but he gave me a reason to leave the house. A steady presence when my head got too loud. I didn't realise it at the time, but bringing Baxter into the family was one of the first things that helped me start to feel grounded again. But my thoughts were never far away. Sometimes I was just brutally honest about myself on Facebook, September 22nd. Just a shame I couldn't stay away from the junk foods and binge eating. It's not the realisation that I have to lose weight again that bothers me. It's the lifetime of self-control afterwards that's messing with my head. That post wasn't really about biscuits. It captured the loop I couldn't break. Try, fail, restart, repeat. There were lighter posts where I joked about the sugar addiction, but behind the humour, I was exhausted. Tired in a way sleep didn't fix. And when money got tight, I started Just Grass. No startup loan, no flyers, just a Facebook post. £20 a cut, give me a shout. Simple, direct. That was all it took to get started. Of course, this is me. So I made a logo. 4 L's, each with its own colour. Red for teaching, blue for run together, green for grass, orange for digital media. Each one a hustle. each one a way to keep moving. Not just a brand, a system, a way of holding it all together when everything felt like it could fall apart again. By early November, that logo was already on my email signature. Run together, just grass, coaching, digital. It was all there. I was positioning myself, living day by day, defining what I could still do, reclaiming control from where I'd started the year in the back of an ambulance. In November, I tested a session for something I'd been thinking about, Liam's Run Together, just one evening, just to see, and it worked. By December 29th, I'd launched it properly. 2 group formats, 1 video telling my story, a post that simply said, "The moment has come, I'm now taking bookings to join my running group." That was me, still fragile, still fighting, but refusing to stay down. I ended 2017 the way I always seem to, contemplating a challenge, setting a really high bar. So, what if I ran 1,000 kilometers in 2018, I said late on New Year's Eve. Because looking forward felt better than sitting still, not as a distraction, but as a way to keep moving. 2017 wasn't the year I hit all my targets. I didn't complete the triathlon I planned, didn't finish the swimming qualification, and didn't stick to the plan. I started a YouTube channel, I'd launched Run Together, I brought Bax to home. And I kept going. For work, for my family, for myself. Was I still struggling? Yeah. But I wasn't pretending, and I wasn't stuck. 2017 wasn't tidy. It was fragmented, messy. Daily tablets of head meds, but it moved me forward. Not dramatically, not loudly, but it moved. Sometimes you don't need a comeback, you just need a next step. I started 2018 with some serious momentum. The 10th of January, I held 4 Run Together sessions in one day. I was still teaching, planning on cutting grass in the spring, still rebuilding the website I'd sworn I wouldn't delete this time. There wasn't a master plan. It was just me staying busy, holding it together to protect the rhythm I'd fought to rebuild in 2017. In April, I did something I'd done a dozen times before. I launched a website. 9th April, liamrey.com, version whatever. Tagline, teacher, coach, grass cutter. But this time I made a deal with myself. No deleting it. I even blogged about it, not for attention, just to call myself out. I've shut them all down before. LiamRey.com, Utterball, Peel Gig Tog, all of them. But I enjoy writing and I'm done self-sabotaging. My mum will always read it and that's enough. In May, we went to Florida, family trip, theme parks, sunshine, and because I'm me, I found a race. On the 19th of May, I did a 5K at Busch Gardens, my first international run. It wasn't a fluke. As soon as I knew we were heading to Tampa, I was Googling local races because running wasn't something I just did anymore. It was part of how I experienced the world. By spring, I was in a real groove, especially with running sessions. Coaching people through races. 3 miles into a 10K, I spied a photographer. I leapt into the air and posed like a suspended running man, yelling, "Flying feet!" It's been a thing ever since. And that's how 2018 felt, really. It was like I was suspended in motion, always lifting, always moving, trying to keep everyone else going and hoping I didn't come down too hard. I kept the swimming teaching going until the end of the summer term and then quietly stepped away. No big farewell, just an email to the parents and never went back to the pool. I watched one of my old students swim her first competitive race. She was strong, confident, ready. A small moment of proud reflection to see legacy of the work I'd done. Underneath it all, those first 9 months weren't about building an empire. It was centered around holding the line, keeping things stitched together. Keeping liamrey.com alive, not as a website, but as a bloke who hadn't given up. 24th of August, I had one of those weeks mentally and everything just hit me. So I wrote 3 words on every mirror in the house. I am enough. Yeah, I posted about it, probably said more than I needed to. I usually do, but the mirrors, something I had to see every day until I started to believe it. In September, I went to Birmingham, not for a race, for an awards night. Some of the folk in the Run Together group had nominated our group, and somehow we landed as runners-up for Group of the Year West Midlands region. I know, West Midlands. It's not quite the Isle of Man. I stood there in a suit, photos, handshakes, the works. And for the first time, I think I really let it land. This was helping people. This thing I'd started in a high vis on a dark January night had grown into something people noticed, people valued, not just on the Isle of Man, but now nationally. It wasn't a spotlight moment. It was a quiet shift in belief. You're doing something valuable, Liam. And for once, I didn't argue with it. That night didn't fix anything, but it confirmed everything. We were now peak Run Together. I wasn't just the guy who'd launched it. I was the one holding the space. Maybe not always on time, but always with purpose. Because it was never about me. It was about making sure they had someone to run with. October was a defining moment in the year. On the 9th of October, I penned something meaningful. Today's the day. Our Mental Health Week run and talk session is later today. We have people from all corners of the island coming to run with us to show support for mental health. My brain is running at a zillion miles an hour with many what-ifs about tonight's run, and I already feel nervous. Totally unnecessary, but trying to keep zero expectations and staying in the moment. Really quite hard. I've actually been okay the last few weeks and have been somewhat stable with my thoughts and feelings. I now accept that I'll have good days and bad days, which is great, but I can't help shake the feeling that at some point something will happen. Or I'll make a catastrophic error that just proves to me I'm as useless as I sometimes feel. You being there for me has changed my life. Running in each and every one of you has been a true pleasure, and one I hope we can continue for many years to come. My name is Liam, and I am enough. We had some 70 runners turn up that night for a casual 5K on the prom in Douglas, all running in the name of mental health. We had a coffee van at the finish line for coffee and cake. People wrote messages on trainers we'd cut out, and we stuck them all over the van. The next day, I was on Manx radio, live, talking about mental health, running, and the truth I'd just exposed the night before. One of those moments again. That's when Beth Espy hit me with the line I didn't know I needed. You post some incredibly powerful things on Facebook. I don't think you even realise the impact they make. That stuck, because for the first time, someone reflected back that my honesty wasn't weakness. It was connection. After that radio interview, things didn't get easier, but they got clearer. I wasn't just building communities, I was starting to become more aware of myself. The patterns, reactions, spirals. There was something running beneath it all, something I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I was beginning to see it. One evening during a lifeguard shift, I was chatting to Phil, the same Phil from the swimming pool those years ago, about how my brain seemed to hijack me sometimes. And he said it like it was obvious. You've got a chimp in your head, mate. I mean, more of a Welsh accent, but that's how he said it. I'll try that again, because I butchered it. One evening during the lifeguard shift, I was chatting to Phil, the same Phil from the swimming pool all those years ago, about how my brain seemed to hijack me sometimes. And he said it like it was obvious. You've got a chimp in your head, mate, and right now he's in control of you. I laughed, like I always do when someone hits too close to home. But later, I looked up The Chimp Paradox by Professor Steve Peters, and suddenly, it clicked. The irrational spirals, the emotional overreactions, the sabotage, the shutdowns, the doubt. It wasn't me. Oh, that got me. It was him. Not the chimp. That felt too soft. I called him Kevin. Naming him didn't silence him, but it changed everything. Because now I could hear him as a separate from me. And once I gave him a name, I could start taking mine back. So no, 2018 wasn't some polished reinvention. But it was progress. Real, structured, and hard-earned. It was a year of movement and momentum, and for the first time in a long while, alignment. I was coaching, working, creating. I was attending group therapy, moving more, doing best to stay present. And when I said I'm enough, I didn't fully believe it yet. But on the better days, the calmer ones, I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, it could be true. 2018 had been my best year in a long time. But if I was going to make anything stick, I had to grow. So I pushed. As we entered 2019, I went all in on hoods and tees. Not a side hustle, a proper business. I got a mentor, went through a startup course, secured a grant, launched a website. This wasn't just a garment printing shop. It was me putting the work in to build something stable, a way to bring together creativity and self-employment from home, something I could run on my terms. Didn't explode, but it wasn't a failure either. It was work, real work, and for a while, it did the job. But Kevin was always there, judging. 2019 had a rhythm all of its own. The momentum was fading. I was uneasier. Fewer finish lines, more weight, more fatigue, fewer posts, fewer words. One post I wrote read, "I've just been discharged from a psychiatrist. Most people would be happy about that. I'm actually disappointed. Nothing's been done about the root cause." And then this. So when you ask me how I am and I say I'm good, your next question needs to be, how are you really? I wasn't fixed. I was just off the books. Still working, still not giving up, but a bit more brittle than I'd let on. In April, I posted, "Time to Del Boy the crap out of life. #this time next year." That was me leaning hard into self-employment, coaching, design work, lawn jobs, hoods and teas, the whole lot. I was clocking 70 to 80 hour weeks, juggling plates, chasing stability, pushing to prove I could build something without ending up back at square one. Burnout doesn't always show up like a crash. Sometimes it's just the way you carry in silence. By August, I was starting to slip. I said out loud, burnout, running reduced to nothing, food addiction raging on, gaming became my escape again. I knew what I needed to do. I just didn't have the energy left to do it. After 4 years of on and off work, I finally earned a level 3 sports coaching distinction in November. Not because I needed it to coach. I'd already been doing the work for years, but I wanted the bit of paper. I wanted the title, something official, something that said, "You belong here." And yeah, it mattered more than I like to admit. I'd coached without the coach badge, helped friends finish their first 5Ks, had many mums finish half marathons, planned sessions for strangers who became teammates. Every lap, every spreadsheet, every "you've got this" whispered before the line, it all built to that. So when the certificate came through, it wasn't validation. It was recognition of something I'd already been living. And then came 2020. I'd think a new decade would bring some clarity, but it didn't. The world slowed down, and so did I. I didn't launch big things, didn't race, didn't post much, but I found something new almost by accident. I started contributing to the Great and Gold community. Content, visuals, data, fact-checking. Just helping, steadily, consistently. And for once, I felt valued. Not for being loud or busy, but just for doing the good work. Looking back now, 2019 and 2020 weren't failures. They were the years I tried to build something real and learn where my limits were. They taught me that doing more doesn't always mean doing better, that contribution doesn't have to come with a logo or a launch video. They weren't wasted years, they were foundation years. They gave me what I needed most, the space to finally figure out that I didn't have to win every day. I just had to stay in the game. By the time 2021 rolled around, we were living in a very different landscape. Lockdowns had isolated us, but also brought us together as an island community. It kept me home with my family, which I was grateful for. But my biggest fear, being out in public, doing the shopping and bringing it home to them. Liam's run together faded. It wasn't sudden, just a slow, silent winding down. And by 2021, it was all but finished. Hoods and teas? Kevin had interfered with that one too, many times. Same old story, I'm not good enough, perfect or in the bin. By the end, it was almost a relief to shut it down. And in the background, another project was already taken over my attention. On the 18th of April, one image went up on Facebook, a poster. Robinson Crusoe, directed by Liam Reynolds. "Oh yes, I am. #Project 2021, I said. And with that, the rest of my year was set. Scripts, rehearsals, blocking, lighting and sound cues. For 8 months, that panto was my tether, a reason to be present, a schedule to hide inside. From May to curtain call in December, I was the director, and that meant I didn't have to answer the harder question. How's Liam really? On the 9th of July, I posted, "When you stop running and start eating everything in sight to cope with your mental state, it's no fun." It's not a restart, it's a low-key admission, just a mic tap, a quiet check-in to say, I'm still here. And for a while, I moved. 3rd of August, still going. Physically, I feel no different. But statistically, I'm improving. I'd been inspired by the Tokyo Olympics, running until I couldn't breathe, walking and going again, throwing heels into the mix, dragging a body I barely recognized through 5Ks that once felt easy. 42:25. Slow, heavy, but I'm moving. It wasn't a victory lap, not a breakthrough, just a reality check, a marker of where I was and how far I had to go. And Kevin, he did not let me forget it. Away from the stage, I'd stayed connected, but only just. Telegram was all I was using, and WhatsApp for staying in contact with those I cherished, the spaces where I could still help without having to be seen. Because where the weight starts climbing and the hair gets long and the mirror gets harder to look at, the last thing you want is a digital reminder of how far you've slid. The panto kept me accountable, not to my goals, to my calendar, something to keep me upright while the rest of me sagged. And while December came, Robinson Crusoe hit the stage. We did it. Applause, photos, smiles, and then nothing. I knew post-show blues were a thing. I'd expected them. I'd planned for them even. But knowing didn't soften the silence that followed. 8 months of work, 4 months of rehearsals, decisions, deadlines, distractions, gone overnight. And I was left with a pile of posters, a coffee-stained script, and the realization that despite all the work, every show must come to an end. It was over. I had no more lines left to hide behind. 2021 wasn't a crash. It was a stall, a long stretch of coasting on old energy, trying not to lose the thread completely. But I stayed in the game. I ran even when it hurt. I was coached by someone I once coached, just aiming to stay afloat. Because if I was scheduling rehearsals, sending messages to the cast, tweaking sound effects, then maybe I didn't have to admit what was really happening underneath. The panto gave me something to control, but it also gave me something to hide behind. All that work, all those months, it looked like momentum, but it wasn't. It was camouflage. Because the truth, I wasn't okay. Not really. I was tired, heavy, anxious in ways I couldn't quite name. And the panto helped me avoid the mirror because it gave me a stage. And when you've got lines to deliver, costumes to consider, and a whole cast depending on you, you don't stop to ask how you're doing. You just keep going. Because what came next in 2022 was going to change everything. I didn't start 2022 with a plan. I started it still hiding. Long after the applause from the pantomime had faded, I was still stuck. Behind a beard, behind a screen, behind a body I no longer recognised. By April, I was 250 pounds, avoiding mirrors, avoiding people, and most of all, avoiding myself. Off social media for well over 6 months, stopped engaging socially because I was convinced everyone around me was tired of hearing the same story on repeat. The starts, the crashes, that this time it'll be different. But April 23rd, I broke the silence. I hate social media, but I've been told I have a story to tell. I focus too much on what didn't work, on failure. I've pushed people away, scared of letting them down. I'm not here to whine. I'm just saying I'm still here. That was me cracking the door. Not some grand return. Just a breath. A moment to see if I could still speak and feel okay being heard. April 27th, I ripped it wide open. After a moment in a shop window I'll never forget. The person you see in the mirror isn't the one everybody else sees. We all get that, I'm sure. I hate walking around the shops. I get reminded too many times of what I see when I look sideways. That dude is pregnant. You fat bastard. I guess you could call it a reality check. We are what we eat, right? The pain for me comes being a certified endurance sports coach with a solid sports nutrition background. I could bore most you to death with how the body uses food as fuel and how to maximize proteins, carbs, and fats. Yet knowing all that, I still let my food addiction consume me. I know I'm addicted to food. A daily packet, 300 grams of chocolate digestives dunked in tea. That's 1,500 calories before I even move my fat ass. I've no desire to exercise. I know exactly what's involved. The pain, the procrastination, the endless feeling that it's never enough. The kids hate me for reading their cupboards. I consume it all. I was triggered today walking down the Ramsey High Street. I know what I have to do. I know how to achieve it. Been there, done that. I've got a wardrobe full of clothes I can no longer wear. The fear isn't losing weight. It's ending up back here again. 9 years and I've never found equilibrium. I've tried everything. Calorie counting, apps, Weight Watchers, even fat fighters, Marjorie Dawes style. Honestly, I'd give up food altogether if I could, but that's not exactly the answer. I'm not looking for advice or sympathy. I'm just putting this out there for anyone silently suffering. Or suffer no more. I'm Liam, the fat mental health guy who feels like a fraud when it comes to practicing what he preaches. But I wasn't alone. Remember Claire from 2016? There was a day around then where I sat in the car and refused to get out. Wouldn't talk, wouldn't hug her, and anyone who knows me, I'm a hugger. That Sunday she was there on my doorstep. We're going for a walk. She'll tell you that was an intervention. We've walked almost every week since. I didn't realise it then, but Claire was a safety blanket, one of the few people who could still pull me out when I retreated too far in. May came with effort, a 30-day challenge to reset myself, insanity workout, gasping runs, digging deep. I posted, half defiant, "Suck it, Kevin, you douche." It's tough, but I'll be here next week for more. By June, I was silent again. Not because I'd failed, but because I was tired. Tired of the resets, tired of pretending each restart was the one, tired of bargaining with myself. Something was off. Eventually I went to the doctor, struggling to hold it all together. The 30-day challenge from May was a memory, but I was still binging, still fighting food. Blood test went off and we waited. 16th of September 2022. I was eating a sausage and bacon butty down at the beach kiosk when the phone rang. Liam, you've type 2 diabetes. Your cholesterol is really high. You must make changes to the way you live your life. You're increasing the risk of a heart attack. Paraphrased, but never forgotten. And in that moment, I made a decision. Just a single line in the sand, drawn without permission from Kevin. That day, I stopped eating crap. Not for a challenge, not for a goal, but because I had to. The fear wasn't about weight anymore. It was about survival. And here's the twist. I didn't flood Facebook with updates, didn't launch a fitness hashtag. I went quiet. But this time, I wasn't hiding. It was focus. Somewhere in that silence, I turned up to a Let's Run session. Liz had supported me for years. She gently offered a space to run with her group if I ever needed it, and I decided to give it a try. It's coming back again. I wasn't there as a coach. Wasn't even sure I belonged there as a runner. I hid at the back. But that's where I met Misha. I didn't even think about it. It was 10 minutes in. I was offering advice. And before I knew it, I can feel it. Sorry. And before I knew it, I was coaching again. Not because I needed to prove something, but because someone needed me. Misha and I found each other at exactly the right moment. She wanted support. I needed purpose. It was a perfect match. A runner who wanted to improve and a coach who had advice to give. 2022 didn't end in dramatic transformation. It ended in discipline. No fanfare, no starting Monday, just clean living life, staying clean. That doesn't make sense, does it? Just living life, staying clean. That's better. And working hard to improve my health every single day, whether Kevin liked it or not. 2022 wasn't the loudest year of my life, but it was the most honest. It was a year I finally stopped bargaining. The year I realized that knowing what to do means nothing if you don't decide to do it. It wasn't a restart. It wasn't redemption. It was the year I ran out of excuses and finally took control. Back in 2019, I didn't go looking to become prolific in the Great and Gold investor community. Like most things in my life, it just happened. At the time, I was juggling business ideas, coaching full starts, battling Kevin and watching my health bounce around like a pinball. And somehow, in all that noise, GGP became something I didn't even realize I needed. It started simple. I'd been burned on a different investment badly. The signs were there, but the truth was hidden behind polished comms and groupthink. So when I stumbled onto Great and Gold, I made a vow. Never again. I started fact-checking forum claims, obsessively sometimes, but always with the intent to understand, not just react. That led me to Telegram, a more focused space where the signal wasn't drowned out by noise. Apparently, my personality showed through, because before long I was asked to become an admin. Looking back, it enabled moments of real growth. Moderating isn't just kicking trolls or replying to questions, it means diffusing tension, taming speculation, and sometimes stepping in to piss on someone's chips gently, damping down the runaway optimism before it binds everybody to the risks. I've lived through the cycle more than once, the euphoric runs, the crushing corrections, the feverish speculation, and the sudden silence. And it scarred me in ways I'd never expected. I've often felt like I'm one of the step ahead of the group. Not because I'm smarter, but because I've seen what happens when no one applies the brakes. Euphoria can just be as dangerous as panic, and when everyone's either cheering or despairing, I try to be the one in the middle. Calm, cautious, numb to most of it, but deeply aware of the danger at the extremes. It's not easy, but that's what's good. That's what good community looks like. No hype, no denial, just people willing to ride it out together. Most of the Telegram group probably don't know how many mental battles I've fought behind the scenes, but a few do. There are people there, friends now, who can spot Kevin's presence before I even notice him. Maybe it's the tone in my writing, maybe it's the timing, but when I start to wobble, my boys are the ones who step in, not to protect me from others, but to protect me from myself. And somewhere between the RNS updates, the charts, and the commentary, I found something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose without pressure. There were no clients, no contracts, no expectations, just the freedom to contribute, to get it wrong, to learn, to try again. And of course, it wasn't long before Liam the creative started getting involved. We started doing YouTube live streams, doing quarterly results from Australia, yapping while waiting for the drop, hosting hundreds of watchers, dissecting results, breaking them down in real time. For the first time in years, I had an engaged audience, interacting in a way that felt collaborative and constructive. The channel broke 1,000 subscribers. Not viral, but for me, it meant everything. I built a website, created a forum for long-form discussions, even silently gave a platform to someone I'd fallen out with. Because believe it or not, I believed in giving people space, not to silence them. I added a donation button just for a coffee to cover the cost of the websites. And to my surprise, people gave. Not loads, but over time I've got to buy better kit, pay for software, fund subscriptions for the community, and occasionally I treat myself to that coffee too. Somewhere in all that, Aim on Air was born. Not a strategy, not as a side hustle, just a natural extension of what I was already doing. I pitched the idea, quarterly updates, where we look backwards at what we have done. The company listened, we trialed it, and it worked. And suddenly, a hobby YouTube channel gave birth to a registered business, thousands of views, CEO interviews, branding, clarity, and comms. Kevin tries to make his points heard, of course, but this wasn't about ego. It wasn't about attention. It was about doing good work in a space that welcomed it. Telegram has taught me a lot. I've probably learned more social lessons in the last 4 years than in any other time in my life. Even now, in 2025, the group still teaches me things. Recently, I made what can only be described as a clanger of a decision. I pulled on my clown shoes. I took a golf ball of a problem, inflated it to the size of a beach ball, turned around in front of the home fans, and scored an own goal. My delivery was clumsy. My intention was solid, but I overworded the post, trying to soften the anticipated fallout, and completely blunted my point. Then, thinking it might land better spoken, I recorded a video and shared it in a private group, hoping people would hear the tone, not the content. Well, the ball went through the back of the net and into the crowd and sparked a reaction. Some people got it, some didn't. Some were downright brutal. It spiraled fast, and I got a crash course in public humility, community accountability, and how to stay grounded when your gut says run. I posted privately to a small group. Did I miscalculate? Maybe. Would I do it differently? Perhaps. But judging by the private messages I've had, the message landed with those it was meant for. There's no manual for this stuff. Just life, just experience. Sometimes your intentions land, sometimes they fall short, and sometimes, despite your best efforts, it just becomes a shit show. The lesson will stay with me, not because it crushed me, but because I walked through it, owned it, and still came out standing. I've made my apologies, I took a step back, and time, as it often does, smoothed the edges. I'm human, and if there's a mistake to be made, I'll probably make it. I remember as a kid being told, do not touch the chip pan lid, it's hot. I leaned in anyway, burned my nose. So yeah, a life of learning the hard way. GGP didn't fix me, but it gave me something I desperately needed. A space, a chance to breathe when everything else felt like it was crumbling. It taught me that value isn't noise or constant action. It's about turning up for the community again and again, even when the results aren't clear. Sometimes just being there without the pressure to perform is what truly matters. Of all the things I've built, businesses, brands, bodies, it was gold mining company that showed me some of life's most valuable lessons. Patience, focus, humility, helping others even when I'm not sure where I stand myself. Because in a world of hype and hustle, contribution to something is what's kept me grounded, even when everything else has felt like noise. And that's exactly what I needed.